How to play fingerstyle or fingerpicking guitar. Book 2, Lesson 5. How to play Lost by Anouk. Before starting on today's tune, let's take a look at chord inversions and alternative bass notes. The reason we're learning this today is because we'll be using one particular inversion a lot today. And it's good to revise or to learn what an inversion and alternative bass is, especially if you want to play fingerstyle guitar. If you found this video through a search and you just want to learn Lost by Anouk, then you can skip on to where the lesson starts using the chapters. But really, I recommend everyone just sit back and listen to the theory, as there's no work to do. This is what chords with altered bass notes look like, where the letter before the forward slash is the chord name, and the letter after the forward slash is the bass note. Hopefully, most of the time that you come across a chord like this, you'll have tablature, which will tell you which bass note to play. However, if you don't have tablature, and you don't know the name of the notes on your guitar, you could be in trouble. So it's a good idea to learn the names of the notes on the guitar for at least the bottom 2 or 3 strings. With this in mind, I've put a link below in the description to a lesson on how to remember all the names of the notes on your guitar in easy steps. If you don't know the names of the notes on your guitar, I really recommend you going through that lesson. But for now, in the PDF of Book 2 of this course, at the end there's an appendix with a fret map that gives you the names of all the notes on your guitar. And if you haven't got the ebooks yet, you can get them completely free at www.ebooks4guitar.com. And if you want to follow this course, I really recommend you download the ebooks. Firstly then, let's take a look at chord inversions. And I'll be teaching this in a very simplified way, because to understand it properly, you need to go through the lessons on chord theory. Again, I'll put a link to the playlist down below in the description. The first thing you need to know is that both major chords and minor chords consist of only 3 notes, and those notes are the first, the third, and the 5th note of the scale with the same name. So, for example, C major would have the first note of the C major scale, the 3rd note of the C major scale, and the 5th note of the C major scale. Whereas an A minor chord will have the first note of the A minor scale, the 3rd note of the A minor scale, and the 5th note of the A minor scale. And generally, when you play a chord, either strumming it or fingerpicking it, you'll play the root note first, this being the note that gives the chord its name. So, using these 2 examples, the C major has a C note as its root, and an A minor has the A note as its root. If rather than playing the root or the first note of the scale when you start a chord, you choose to play the 3rd note or the 5th note, then this becomes an inversion. So, for example, if you've got a C chord and you strum it from the C, this is just C. But if you choose to start it on the E note, then this is a first inversion, because you're playing the 2nd note of the 3. And if you choose to start it on the G, then this is a 2nd inversion, because you're starting on the 5th note of the scale. Now, using the C major chord as an example again, to explain why it's called a 1st and 2nd inversion, if we get the 1st note of the scale, the 3rd note of the scale, and the 5th note of the scale, it's C, E, and G, and this is called a triad. Now, if you pick up the C and put it to the end after the G, then you've inverted the order by one step. So you've now got E, G, C. However, if you move the E and put it after the C, you've inverted the order twice. So you've got G, C, E. So this becomes a second inversion. As I mentioned earlier, this is very simplified, but it gets the point across. And at this point, you really don't need to understand this fully. One question I will answer now, because I know it will come up if I don't, and that is, why are you strumming more than 3 strings if you've got only 3 notes in the scale? And the reason for this is that the notes repeat. So for example, with the C chord, you play C, E, G, C and E. With the A minor chord, you'll play A, E, A, C, E. And something else the second example, or the A minor, demonstrates is the fact that the notes aren't in order at all. So whilst the triad's there and you're starting on the A, the rest of the triad is completely out of order. And that's fine, that's quite normal. Right, let's move on to the song. How to Play Lost by Anouk. Firstly, we'll take a look at the inversion we're playing in this tune. And it's a D with an F sharp bass, which means it's a first inversion. And it's not an easy chord to play, but if we take a look at it in context to the tune, that will give us some clues as to how we can play it. And the first thing you'll notice is that we play it an awful lot. However, there isn't one circumstance in the tune where we play the top E string, and this means we can get away with a partial chord. Also, you'll notice it's either being played with a C add 9 or with a G5. So they're the chords we need to practice moving between. Now, there's 2 ways of fingering these chords, and it really revolves round the 3rd fret on the B string, which you can either play with the 3rd finger or the 4th finger. Now, the reason the chord changes revolve around the 3rd fret on the B string is that that note, which is a D, is a drone. And a drone is a note that either rings constantly through the tune or through a particular passage in a tune. And it's quite commonly used in music. But how that manifests in this song is that you have to keep that finger in place for large sections of the tune. To get used to the idea of keeping that finger in place, we'll just do the main theme, which is actually most of the tune. And it consists of 2 lines where we go between a G5 and the D with an F sharp bass, then to a C add 9 and back to the D with an F sharp bass. And you'll notice, as I mentioned earlier, that the 3rd fret on the B string doesn't move at all. I'll show you 2 options for playing this passage, and then you can pause the video and try both and decide which one you prefer. Option 1, where the 3rd fret on the B string is being played with the 3rd finger. And option 2, where the 3rd fret on the B string is being played with the 4th finger. Let's take a closer look at that fingering to make it completely clear. And we'll start by looking at option 1, where the third finger remains in place. The first shape is the G, which then moves over to the D with an F sharp bass. Then we go to the C add 9, finally going back to the D with the F sharp bass. Here that is again. G5, D F sharp bass, C add 9, D with the F sharp bass. Option 2 is where the fourth finger holds down the third fret on the B string. So let's put the fourth finger into place first and play the G5. Then we move to the D with an F sharp bass. Then move across to the C add 9 and finish back on the D with the F sharp bass. And here's option 2 again. G5, D with an F sharp bass, C add 9, D with an F sharp bass. With both options, whichever finger you choose to hold down the third fret on the B string remains in place. And this continues throughout the song. So it's not unusual for that finger to get a little sore. Before attempting to play this with any backing, let's take a quick look at the rhythm, which is 6/8 time, meaning there's 6 beats in the bar. Here's how to count the 6 beats with the drum beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The finger picking pattern is quite simple, and it's one you would have learnt within the first few weeks of book 1 of this course. And it's primary, index, middle, annular, middle, index. Armed with that extra information, let's try theme 1 at 80 beats per minute with a 2-bar introduction. You might need to pause the video here in order to try the 2 different fingering methods and decide which one's best for you. To play this tune, I'd usually use option 2 with the 4th finger on the 3rd fret of the B string, leaving the 1st, 2nd and 3rd fingers free to do everything else. However, when I was filming this, I have found that the resting position of the 3rd finger obscures my other fingers. So I'm using the 3rd finger to finger the 3rd fret on the B string so that you can see clearly what I'm doing. Here that is again at 80 beats per minute with a 2-bar introduction. Try and play along if you think you're ready. Here that is again, but this time slightly faster at the full speed, which is 90 beats per minute. And here that is again, one last time, at 90 beats per minute with a 2-bar introduction. Try and play along if you think you're ready. Theme 1 repeats again and again throughout the tune. So if you want to pause the video here and practice it, you can do. I've put the drum beats at the end of this video at 80 beats per minute and 90 beats per minute. So they're there if you want to practice with them. Right, let's start going through the tune now, and we'll start with the introduction. And the introduction is basically just theme 1, but you finish slightly earlier on the bass note in the last bar. Here's what it sounds like being played at 80 beats per minute with a 2-bar introduction. And here that is again at 80 beats per minute with a 2-bar introduction. Try and play along this time if you think you're ready. If you think you're ready to try it at full speed, here it is at 90 beats per minute with a 2-bar introduction. Right, let's move on and take a look at the verse, which is also basically theme 1 repeated. However, if you look at the verse, in the first bar of line 2, you've got a hammer on the C add 9. And to play this, you basically prepare for the C add 9, but then release the first finger and play the open string. Then hammer the first finger into place. And I mean hammer it into place. It's not how hard you hit the string, but how fast. And if you hit it right, the note will continue to ring. You might have to pause the lesson here in order to practice that. But if not, here's the verse being played at 80 beats per minute with a 2-bar introduction. You can try and play along if you think you can. And here that is again with a 2-bar introduction in case you want to try playing along. If you're struggling with that hammer on, or just can't play it, don't worry, just omit it for now and play a straight chord. You can always put it back in at a later date. If you're ready to try the verse at full speed, here it is being played at 90 beats per minute with a 2-bar introduction. Right, let's move on to the chorus, which for the first 6 bars is identical to the verse, including the hammer on the C add 9. However, if you look at the last 2 bars of the chorus, you'll see we're introducing a D add 11, which sounds really complicated, but is really easy to play. And it's especially easy to play if it comes after a C major, because it's exactly the same shape, but slid up the neck by 2 frets, so the first finger sits in the 3rd fret. Here that is being done, firstly playing the C, and secondly playing the D add 11. Here that is now in context with the tune, playing the whole chorus all the way through at 80 beats per minute with a 2-bar introduction. And here that is again at 80 beats per minute with a 2-bar introduction. This time, try and play along with it if you think you're ready. Here that is again, one last time, but this time at full speed, 90 beats per minute. Try and play along if you think you're ready. Right, let's move on to the bridge, which has some slight changes compared to the rest of the tune. The first line is the same as the beginning of the intro, verse and chorus, but the second line, which is repeated, drops the drone for the first 2 chords, which are C and A minor. But also, if you look at those 2 chords, you'll notice there's a walking bass line connecting the 2 chords. So watch out for that. Apart from that, it's all very straightforward and very much a repeat of what you've already done. The third line uses the same chords as the second line, and it uses the walking bass line as well. But it finishes slightly earlier on the 5th fret of the A string. Here's the bridge being played with the repeat at 80 beats per minute. And here that is again at 80 beats per minute with a 2-bar introduction. Try to play along if you think you're ready, and I'll include the repeat. Let's play that one last time, but this time at 90 beats per minute with a 2-bar introduction and including the repeats. Right, let's go on to the final passage, which is the outro. And chord-wise, this is very similar to the bridge, so it'll be quite easy to play, but it's got a slightly confusing repeat going on. And how you deal with this is you play the first 2 lines twice, then you play the first line and skip on to the last line. You'll notice that the last 2 chords of the last line are strummed. And in the actual tune, the drums have stopped at this point, so there's a large pause between the 2 chords. However, for the sake of this tutorial, we'll do it in time with the drum beat. I'll play through it at 80 beats per minute with a 2-bar introduction, and I'll include all the repeats. For the first time, just try to follow what I'm doing with the tablature. If you manage to follow along with the tablature, you could try playing it now. But if not, try following along with the tablature again to see if you can get the hang of it. Here it is being played again at 80 beats per minute with a 2-bar introduction. Here it is one last time at 90 beats per minute with a 2-bar introduction. If you think you're ready, try to play along with it. Now we've learned all the components of the song, the last thing we just need to look at is the arrangement. And what this is the order the song is played in, because you wouldn't play it straight through. You can see straight away you'd play the intro, the verse, the chorus, but then you'd go back through the verse and chorus before going to the bridge, the chorus again, and finally the outro. For the sake of practicing and learning the tune, you can just play straight through the tablature. But if you want to play along with the lyrics or with the original song, you'll have to apply the arrangement. But also, when you get a new arrangement, just study it, because when eventually you want to write music, you want to be aware of the fact that arrangements can be very different. And it can add another dimension to your own songwriting to use different arrangements. Here's the tablature being played through at 80 beats per minute with a 2-bar introduction. And I'll ignore the arrangement, but I'll include the repeats. As usual, try to play along if you think you're ready. Here that is again, one last time, at 90 beats per minute, which is the full speed. But don't worry if you can't play it at this speed yet. Keep practicing and you'll get there. And I've put the drum beats at the end of this lesson at 80 and 90 beats per minute, so you can practice with them. And that's it for today's lesson. If you enjoyed it and you're new to the channel, please like, subscribe and hit the bell icon, and then you'll be notified when I upload new videos. And I'll put the links down below in the description to the playlists for Book 1 and Book 2. And you can get the PDFs that accompany the course completely free at www.ebooks4guitar.com. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you come back soon.